Welcome back to Mark's Demolition Diaries, and today we're talking about really the best asset that we've got in our business, and that's our people. I've been at Coleman's for 28 years now and around the business pretty much all of my life, and during that time there have been a number of characters that have worked at Coleman's and I've learnt a lot from. We've given out many gold watches over the years, and we've got a couple of guys that particularly come to mind in terms of how you get involved with Coleman's and their sort of career progression story. Mark Carlos, who's our contracts director, started labouring, then he went into site supervision. He then became a project manager, then to contracts manager, and now has been a contracts director for Coleman's in the region of 10 to 12 years. So it shows really you can start here as a labourer or whatever really, and you can work your way all the way up to the top.
I left school. I didn't take any qualifications because I literally wanted to work. My father, his main history was working for Coleman's himself. He said there was a job about in Lichfield. He says, and I'll introduce you to David Coleman. He took me into the yard, and it was actually Jack Coleman that I met, which was Mark Coleman's grandfather. And he just said to me, get out there, don't cause any trouble, and get on with it. Started off sweeping the road, and David used to come out once a week. I ended up helping with the levels and doing the batters and things like that. And so it was a good sort of introduction into Coleman's business. Got through my supervisor ticket, started looking after sites as a supervisor. And then I've just sort of grown with the company. Got made into a project manager. Mark offered me a directorship in 2010. I think it's been 12 years now that I've been a director. But I think people have realised now demolition it's an engineering project now when you go and do a demolition, not like the old days, knock a few walls down with a sledgehammer. I like to think of it as an art, whereas construction, they see an open piece of land and they see a building afterwards. With us, we see a building, then an open piece of land, and then you see another building afterwards, and you think, well, perhaps in 20 years' time we'll be knocking that one down then. So I can drive through Birmingham and go, yeah, that used to be so-and-so tower, that used to be, I knocked that one down, we knocked that one down. And like you can see, Birmingham city centre is thriving now. But Coleman's have made a big part of that history in enabling that to happen.
I'm pretty sure my granddad would have been doing work with Birmingham City Council, so yeah, it's a long standing relationship.
It is, yeah, and that relationship is not just with one, it's with the whole team that's within the council. You have, companies like yourselves who are really professionally orientated, the documentation you produce, the health and safety files, etc. Everybody within my team are happy to work with Coleman's.
We tend to find that we have a lot of friends of friends and family members, which is fantastic because that just adds more to the family feel. We then of course have strategic sort of targeting. Although we don't use a lot of recruitment agencies, we prefer to bring people in, put them on a training program, invest in that training. We have a number of people that have come in from no education at all, leaving with professional qualifications from degrees to master's degrees, all of which is a win-win situation for the guys that are actually getting educated and for us as a business, because they're actually learning it the Coleman way, which is really important to us.
So I started back end of 2009, actually started on an agency on the New Street Station project, worked for a couple of months, met Mark Coleman, and it was Mark that actually offered me the job and said, well, instead of working for them, why don't you come and work for me? Started off then with Coleman's on the books as a general operative and progressed, worked my way up, various different roles, lift supervising, site supervising, done a stint with Coleman Cutting Services as a project coordinator, and then sort of come back to the demolition side as a project manager, and that's where I sit now.
Demolition is a process, and it's a process to be managed, and if you've got the right people to manage it, you learn about the demolition. You don't wake up in the morning and go on a course and become a demolition manager or even a demolition labourer. You learn by experience, And the best experience you can get is certainly what did me good, was being out on site.
It's probably the best way of doing it, I'd say. I've learnt a lot, I've still got a lot to learn, but when I'm on site and operationally, I know what's going on, I've done it myself. If the lads have got problems, I've probably been through them issues as well.
I can go out to site and speak to the guys. It's helped me become the person that I have, because I can relate to most people on site.
I was employed to get cutting services running. 10 years on, I'm sort of in the thick of it with everyone and part of the team. Been many changes since I've been here, but it's good to be part of a company that's got 60 years of heritage. You know, it's a selling point for me even with cutting services, but to be able to go to clients and sell 60 years of heritage in Mark and Dave's family is a massive thing. And that's how I've got cutting services to where they are now, because I was able to go and explain to people what we're all about, the family values, the culture, the Coleman way, as people say, and it sort of put us in good stead to be where we are now, which has meant cutting services evolved into a successful business. And now I'm able to help take Coleman and Company and remediation and engineering and cutting to the next level, which is really positive.
In contrast now to Mark, for example, 30 odd years ago, we're bringing young, resourceful individuals into the company that have good technical skills, good with IT, good with computers, good with technology, which is what we need to be better at now and in the future. The balance between the experience and the energy and the knowledge of the technical side of things is perfect. So we have experienced people helping train younger people, and then the younger people are actually helping train the guys that haven't actually got these techie sort of skills.
When I first came in, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I'd just finished uni, sort of done a gap year just in an office, and then I started as admin. I was based on site at Southall, contracts assistant the role was, so split between the project manager helping him and also the site manager. Since then I've progressed to assistant project manager, and again more recently to project manager. I'm a clear example that you can progress through this company, and they're willing to put the time and investment in you as long as you are yourself as well.
Everybody has a career plan in terms of what they need to achieve as an individual with respect to experience, training and certification. It's clearly set out. And indeed, if you look at the board of directors, Leslie started here, she's our finance director for the group. She started here working as an auditor. Her relationship with Coleman's is 30 years plus. She started as an accounts assistant, accounts manager, and then ultimately became finance director for the group. Gordon Blashjack, he looks after all of our pre-quals and tendering and upfront sort of getting the work through the door. And again, I met him at Stetchford. He must be coming up 20 years. And again, literally, he did a bit of estimating. And of course, as the jobs got bigger, we'd work closely.
When you compare to where other people work, so people won't know that, even speak to the directors, or they won't speak to upper management, but here it's more of that sort of family environment where everyone seems to get involved, everyone knows what's going on, so that's definitely obvious here, I think, especially when you work here and you see how other people work.
5 years ago, Connor was looking for an apprenticeship, my son Connor, so I told him to apply for Coleman's, and he was successful, and he's still there doing a good job.
I've come here 5 years ago, started as an apprentice, worked my way through the MVQs, and then put me through different courses to give me more responsibility, and I'd like to work my way further up in the company in the coming years.
There's an accounts position on Indeed, so I applied for it. I've done accounts all my life, so I used to be a team leader, but I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want the responsibility of that. I wanted a small, friendly team, so I came to Coleman's. I saw the commitment that Coleman's used to give to the staff. We encourage people to further their careers, and I just admire the values that, you know, have been instilled in me over the last 10 years. And every day you learn something new. There's something that happens on site that you grow from. I wouldn't send him if it wasn't a safe place for him to come and work. You know, he's my child at the end of the day, and he always will be.
Sky's the limit, really. I haven't chose what path I want to go down, but I'd like to go as far as possible in the company, and I'd like to think the company think that about me to push me further on.
The people that have surrounded working with me in the last 10 years are friends, brothers, sisters, girlfriends, relations, and yes, there's other people that have come into the business, but just sort of relays back to the family values and the culture that have always been sort of reiterated to me.
Actually turned out that Dave Coleman was born 2 doors away from my house. I parked the van, my mum's in the street the one day. The neighbour come over and see my mum, and he said, just out of curiosity, is that Coleman's from Stetchford? And she said, yeah, and he said, Dave was born here. She said, where? She was there next door, because I used to play football with him when we were kids. I remember seeing Dave in the office a few weeks after, and I said, Dave, can I ask you a question? His first thing he said was, no, you're not having a pay rise. I said, I don't want a pay rise, but was you Allerton Road ring any bells? He said, yeah, I was born there. And I said, that's where I grew up. I said, I'm 2 doors away. It just shows how much of a sort of a small world it was. Now I'm sort of working for Coleman's, and he was born on the same street. I thought it was quite strange. So yeah, a one-off.
We call our people our greatest asset, and ultimately we can have all this fancy technology, we can have fancy jobs, we can have fancy machinery, but unless we've got competent, trained, professional staff that are actually committed and dedicated to what we're doing, clearly the people are the success of Coleman's. I'd like to personally thank everybody that's worked for Coleman's over the years, whether you're part of our supply chain or work with us as clients or direct employees. You know, without you, we wouldn't be able to make it with 60 years of success. So yeah, thank you. Our next session that we've got for Mark's Demolition Diaries, we'll be going out around Birmingham, our stomping ground, looking at all the different jobs that we've done. So hopefully you look forward to that and you enjoy it. See you next time.